Welcome to another episode of the Mapscaping podcast. My name is Daniel, and this is a podcast for the geospatial community. This year, 2025, I was fortunate enough to attend the FOSS4G event in Auckland. It was fantastic. I met some brilliant people there, and I even managed to record a few podcast episodes with them. And this is one of them. I really hope you enjoy it. Hi, Jerome. Welcome to the podcast. So you are the CEO and founder of something called GeoCat. And before we get started, could you just tell me how to pronounce your name properly, please?
Jeroen Tichelaar.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I'm going to be saying Jerome throughout this podcast episode, because I just can't do it. And I apologize for that. GeoCat, what is it?
GeoCat is a company that has open source in its DNA. It's all about data sharing, geospatial data sharing, also more and more other types of data sharing, and serving up those data.
So when you say open source in its DNA, are you building on any particular open source projects?
Yes.
What do you mean open source in its DNA?
I started a project named GeoNetwork, open source, and we've been contributing and developing that project close to 20 years now in GeoCat, and before that in the UN.
Could you tell me a bit about what it does?
It's a geospatial metadata catalog. So it's really to describe geospatial data and geospatial services. Know what type of data you have in-house. Know what assets you have that you want to make available to others in your organization or across organizations in the country at international level.
And we'll get to what you're doing now, but I want to start at the beginning. So when you started the company, founded the company, what were people paying you for?
People were paying for improvements on the software and actual implementations at their organization. So it was really on consulting. We were delivering new releases of software specifically configured for them.
Okay. Were there a service level agreement there?
No.
No one would buy a support contract?
No, we would have to support it for a number of months if there were bugs appearing. So we'd have to fix that. But otherwise, it would be, we would just deliver our services, our improvements to the code and to their application.
Yeah. And someone will show up from time to time and say, hey, we need this feature, pay you to implement it.
Yes.
And you'd push it out to all of the installations.
Yeah. Yeah. So we would try to make sure that what we developed for them would be part of the open source codebase. And so would eventually be available to all others using the same software.
Is that difficult sometimes? Like having to think about the open source code base and someone's very specific needs? Or was it always?
Yeah, it is difficult. I think the strength of what we did was that we knew the code base in and out. So we could advise and say, listen, this particular feature does not make sense for others. So let's think about it. Should we do this? Yes or no? But it definitely also created complications because some features would be for one customer and not for another. So it would create forks and complexities to maintain.
Yeah, I can imagine. Back then, would you have described yourself as a consulting company?
Yeah.
Yes. And so the main contracts were these installations?
Yeah. And they would be really we want you to do this and this and this, and we would make estimates and provide that to them.
What would be a long contract or a good size contract for you?
I think it would be around 100,000 euros, but it could be up to 400. We've had contracts up to 400,000 per year in consulting time.
So when you're consulting, my guess is it's hard to sort of flatten that income curve, to take the sharp edges off it. My guess is it was a lot of feast and famine. Is that correct? Or did you manage to collect enough of these contracts to have a consistent and reliable income?
Yes, I think we had more than enough work. So we always had customers coming to us, mouth to mouth. We didn't struggle. We struggled in maintaining multiple branches of the same code base. And so having regressions in code in one customer's code base and others in another, that caused the team to be stretched out from time to time. Yeah.
Was that because of the nature of the project that you were creating? Because, and the reason I ask this is because when I look around the open source world, oftentimes people are really struggling to make a sort of stable business around it, because it's like, it's this feast or famine. Like, I need this new feature today, and then nothing. And then I need a new feature, nothing. Oh, can you implement this? And then that's it, walk away, not interested in buying a support, like a longer term agreement from me. But was that just because of the nature of what you were offering, that, they were always bigger projects?
Well, I think there was so much work to be done still in the project. Everybody was coming up with new things that needed to be supported, new standards to be implemented, national profiles on metadata to be implemented. So sometimes fairly specific, but often general use. But it was also I think many people thinking, since it was free and open source, they could basically modify it to their own needs completely, making it difficult to, and this is in that type of business, it can be hard to say no to specific features because they are paid for. We said no to things that was not always appreciated. So we had customers that wanted specific things that we didn't think made sense for a larger audience, but they would insist on having those because they were paying. They would basically create their own fork of the project because of their requirements and their requests to implement.
In terms of running a business, is that helpful? Because at some stage, those people are going to need a specialized kind of support, maybe. And then you being the experts in it.
If that would be my driver, that would be helpful, but it's not. So I don't like that type of business. I like it to make a tool that is useful for many, and where we can also make it sustainable. Have whatever we develop be useful to many and not to a single customer. And so I've seen many of the type of things you're saying, that companies are adding features that then force the customer to stay with you to maintain them. But it's not my business. Yeah.
That's fair enough. I think a lot of people here, we're at FOSS4G at the moment in Auckland. I think a lot of people here have the same outlook on the world. Do you think it'd be possible to start the same business now, or has the world moved on? And what I'm wondering is, because you were saying it's specifically around metadata and, making that available to people and searchable. A while ago and still now, metadata hasn't become less important, but there was a real push for this at least, 8-10 years ago.
Yeah. I think you could start a similar business now. Yeah. It's a topic that is not getting all the attention it needs, even if there is a push. But probably also because metadata is no fun.
Yeah.
So why would you? Yeah.
If you're thinking from a business standpoint, there's a lot of great businesses built around solving incredibly boring problems. And please don't take that as a critique, but you know what I mean, right? And boring doesn't mean unimportant.
To be honest, I started a business because I hate that type of thing. And I thought there should be a solution that makes that easier, and that at least makes that into something that you only have to do once and not 20 times. Or if you do it, you'll be able to find that information also a couple of years ahead and not lose it. So trying to make it simpler for people to share information in a way that is also more sustainable in the long run. Yeah.
One of the reasons why I really wanted to record this episode with you is, my understanding is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you started out life as a consultancy. Maybe you're still doing consultancy now, today, but you see there's a shift, there's a focus towards building a product. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I think about 6-7 years ago, we discussed with some of our prime customers that our team was unhappy and their team was unhappy with the services that we were able to deliver. And that was mainly because there were so many regressions starting to happen in the different releases that we made for different customers. And so a big thing there was that my team got really exhausted in fixing one and the same thing 20 times. yeah, that's not motivating. I mean, it's not motivating to create one metadata, but it's not motivating to fix the same bug 20 times either. So at that point, they basically asked for a custom off-the-shelf solution. And I was desperate to deliver a custom off-the-shelf solution so that we could charge a lower fee per customer, and it could scale eventually. And we could have our team focus on one product and not 20 copies of the same product.
Without that client coming to you and saying, hey, look, this is a headache for us, would you have done it, do you think? Would you have come to that realization that, or had the thought that a productized or a product is the way to go?
Yeah, I think it's kind of grown organically because we were facing this in our team where we were doing the same thing over and over. So I really wanted to move on to something simpler. I also didn't feel comfortable with the amount of money we were charging for the work we were doing because it was so specific to this one customer, and I didn't think it made sense. So I'd rather had them pay like 10% of that amount and still be happy, or be happier, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a good driver, and, we shook hands and said, let's do it. So yeah, we did.
Does that mean you're moving completely away from these sort of ad hoc services, consultancy?
Yeah, I won't say completely because there's always some things that happen, but I think that definitely a big change has been that we now create one solution that is suitable for all customers. We'll set up a custom build for them that includes very specific metadata schemas, for instance, that they need, or their branding, and then make a release that they can install internally or that we run on our cloud for them. But those changes are very minimal. And so they don't have a choice in terms of we want that particular functionality that nobody else wants.
And this is the way of you stopping that happening by creating a product and say, this is it.
Yeah.
You're in or you're out.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, why didn't you make a product right from the start?
I think we're learning. And I think also our customers were learning. So we really were, you need this for your national mapping agency, or you need this for a national level catalog, or you need this at the province level. So different audiences, different requirements. And you tend to then make a solution that is more specific to one than to another.
And you know the kind of problems you want to solve and can solve, I think. I think at the start, I'm always surprised by companies that make a product at the start. I think you need to know a lot about the person you're seeking to serve to show up without having interacted them with before and say, hey, this is the thing you're missing. This is the thing you need. It's a tough thing to do. I think a lot of research and thought has to go into that.
Yeah.
And I could imagine like the business model that you're talking about where you start services, you're interacting with the customer, you're figuring out what works, what doesn't work, what they actually care about, which might not be the same thing that you think they care about, and what they're paying money for now. And you're also looking around the landscape and saying, well, what does the competition look like? You're building up a relationship with people as well. So when you do come out with something, my guess is anyway, you got more of a chance of having it be a success.
Yeah. And in that sense, I think the product proved its usefulness already for close to 7 years before I started the company. So I was working at the United Nations at the time, and the product was developed by me and by my team as an open source product at the time. So we had agencies using that, but we also got requests from others using it. So we knew fairly well what customers needed. And I think one of the success factors in it was that we were driving towards having a common set of features anyway. But then moving into, so I resigned from the UN, started a company, and then you get big contracts basically laid out for you. So the requirements are in that contract, and you implement those. And then you start seeing some things that you probably wouldn't have if it was more generic. So maybe too specific. And so it starts to, be that big project here this year. And then next year, there's another big project for another customer. how do you keep those things aligned? How do you make sure that everybody is kind of upgrading at the same time and have the same catalog?
So it sounds like you're looking for overlap between the projects, like scaling, because like what are the bits of this that we don't need to repeat or that are repeatable? Sorry, perhaps, what can we copy and paste? And so you sort of build up to, I guess you do that enough and look around and see enough mistakes and build up a series of almost standard operating procedures. And that leads to the final sort of product, like, oh, well, this is the thing that people actually need based on our years of experience.
Yeah. Yes.
Is it an easy move to move away from consulting into a product, selling a product, maintaining a product?
Yes.
It is easy.
It was. To me, it was, because I was willing to not get the income of doing consulting and be happy with what we got out of subscriptions. And I was confident that if we did, we would get enough subscribers to it. We could have been bankrupt. I mean, if the thing didn't work out, but I trusted that we could. And so in that sense, it was easy. It took time within the team to change the mindset to not fully implement what the customer is asking. So to actually also say no to specific things that were asked. And as a developer, as a software engineer, our people really want to help the customer with a solution. So any question asked is basically a yes. So changing that into sometimes saying no, or understanding that from a business point of view, we will say no to some things, that took more time. So deciding to move to a product company didn't take much time, for me at least. Having that go through the developer team, through our own team, took more time. Yeah.
So that's one thing, learning how to say no to a customer, which is tough. It goes against everything, like, everything you believe in. I'd like to make money, thanks. I'd like to, and especially that's what they've been doing. This is how you've been surviving for the last, 10 years or something. What about the risk involved with it, Because you talked about maybe going bankrupt.
Yeah, no, I think we risked bankruptcy also with the consulting. I mean, we never got to that stage, but we've got to a stage where I said, listen, we have to change some things because otherwise we won't last another 3 months. That was actually in the consulting business, not in the product business. It was because we were not actually delivering all these commercial hours. So we were spending time on a lot of community work or other work that was not bringing in money. And I think that was also one of those things that made me change to a product company. Was I want my staff, my team, to be able to contribute to these open source projects, basically without that fear of not writing enough hours on consulting. Or what do you say, without billing all these hours? Because it's hard to justify that you spend time on answering questions on a mailing list or fixing a bug for a community release, or for merging something into a community release, making a community release for our software and charging that to a customer. Customers are not interested. They don't care about the community releases. They care about what you deliver to them.
So I think I know the answer to this, but just in case, tell me why a product, like selling a product, having one product to focus on, is going to make you a better open source citizen.
The moment we have enough subscribers to that product, it will generate revenue that we can actually spend on making a better release of the open source tools, of the technology. So it gives us freedom to invest in the user interface, in the user experience, in having better security, fixing vulnerabilities, having processes to guarantee that the code quality improves. So there's all kind of processes. Probably, I think maintenance of software is like 60 to 80% of the cost. The other 20, 30% is what you develop from scratch. But the rest is all maintenance and hardship. I think in open source, that's probably not less, maybe even more. Nobody wants to pay for that, but they're willing to pay for a product that solves their problem. So that is very much like a proprietary software strategy. I think it works because it scales better. I think we can actually afford to have a larger team of experts delivering the code, improving the code. So in the end, the source code is out there. The technology is out there for people to use, and they don't have to actually pay money. But developing that is not free at all. It's actually very costly. So us having a product that our customers can rely on gives them what they actually need. And it gives us the opportunity to make something very sustainable, open source.
And it also means, I guess, all of the changes that you're now able, or the time you're able to dedicate to the open source product will flow into your product as well.
Yeah, we do it both directions. So sometimes we improve the open source product, sometimes we improve our products, and then feed that back into the open source repo.
And how is your product different from the actual open source software? Have you built some magic on top? Is it different functionality, a different user interface?
There actually is a different user interface by default, although the code is also available in public. I think the big difference is that the community release is a binary of the source code that is out there. It's a build. It has all the functionality you can possibly think of. I think a product is much more than just source code. It's not only the binary. In our case, it's the binary that is customized for the particular customer, so they don't have to care. They don't have to maintain their own changes to their branding, to their profiles, etc. But it's definitely also have access to the experts that know what's happening in the code, that can tell you this function is already existing. You don't have to develop it yourself and add it to the open source project because it exists. It's hidden maybe, but it's here. So it's access to experts. It's also a guarantee that vulnerabilities, when they are reported, there's a disclosure process where we first get those vulnerabilities reported to the core developers. They can take action to fix it. They can take action to fix it in our products and deliver it to our customers. So they are protected. And then we'll make sure that those fixes go into the community releases, but we have no control on who is going to install those, yes or no. So there's a big added value, I think, to customers that directly buy from us, that they know they're taken care of. They don't need experts in-house to do updates, upgrades of systems, and they have more secured software, better tested.
What would you say to people like maintainers of open source products or open source developers that were worried about like competing against their own software, if you understand what I mean?
Yeah. Well, trust in what you're actually delivering. So trust that by doing open source software, you'll get others to contribute and review what you do, contribute new functionality. So 1 and 1 is 3 and not 2. So it really is, you can do more with an open source project in terms of implementing standards, making sure the standards are compliant, are well tested, national metadata profiles. It's very difficult to maintain those all by yourself as one company. So having others be able to create those, we can then integrate those into our product. And those are advantages of doing open source.
Is part of your sales pitch, this is open source? Do the clients care that it's open source?
To be honest, it is in my sales pitch. Do I think they care? Yes, but only to a very limited level. In the end, they want a solution that works, and that is the best they can find. So, yeah, it is part of our DNA, and we want to be sure that you're not locked in the end. So you have always a choice and can always move away from us.
So I was standing right beside you. I think it was yesterday. I was listening to a talk that was happening down here in the foyer, and someone mentioned free, like the free or cheap.
Gratis.
The cost. And that was the first thing that came to their mind. I thought it was really interesting that they didn't focus on the best. You know, like I'm looking for the best solution to my problem. And I think this is something that really sort of dogs open source a lot. I think if I was a runner, I'm not looking for free running shoes. I'm looking for the best running shoes, and I'm happy to pay for it, and I don't know how we could change that in the open source world.
I fully agree. So I may even have been at the same the same talk. I don't remember, but it was like, yes, for a student in university, free as no money is a completely valid thing. So having access to free, excellent technology is, they could do with a bit less than excellent because it would still be free. So having access to the best and free is even better. But it also gives that impression to students that this is free, while it is free as in intellectual property, as in freedom, but it's definitely not free in cost. It's actually as expensive as any other software that is developed and maintained. And I think so far, most of us have worked on projects where we kind of develop on a shoestring. So we didn't have the revenue and the money needed to really focus on the absolute best user experience, to create all the documentation up to date for each release. Those are kind of the things that are suffering first. And so I think we're definitely at the stage with our tools that, those are the things that are critical to make it the best. So investing in UI, UX, user interface, user experience, investing in people that can build really good user interfaces is something that is becoming more and more a requirement for us to do.
I asked a question before about being a good open source citizen, and you were talking about, well, we have the stability in our income now, and that's going to give more freedom to be a better open source citizen. Would you like to see more companies do this? Or is this just like this idea of building a product? Like in your particular situation, it's a great thing, right? It's the way you're going, and you can see all these spin-offs, benefits from that for the community as well as for yourselves. Would you like to see more people moving away from consultancy to developing products in the same way that you have?
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that. So I think we're seeing a couple of companies in the geospatial world taking that approach, and I think it will be successful. And I probably think there will be the success factor we need to bring this to a next level.
Would you have any advice at all for people, consultancy, that is, I guess that the idea is the same. They're working on a open source project in the same way you were. They're having these, I guess, short-term contracts and always looking for a new contract. How would you suggest they start thinking about creating a product or looking for a product or knowing the difference between a good and a bad product? Would you have any advice for those people at all?
Well, trust in your own knowledge and in what you deliver, and also feel good about asking money for it, while there's this small sound in the back or voice in the back that says, this is free software. No, it's not free. It's actually at a cost. So make sure you properly charge for it, and make sure you find customers that are willing to charge and also understand why you're charging that money. And, they should be relying on you to fix things or provide a good product. But you can also convince them that the product will actually be better instead of, pay a one-time consulting fee. Convince them that by paying a regular fee, they make sure that in the long term, they'll always have updated releases of the software and are actually supporting the open source software itself.
Through doing this podcast, I get the privilege of talking with a lot of different people. And I often think that they have mistakenly thought that their generosity is working really, really hard. As I'm going to work really, really hard. And then I see them burn out, and then they leave the project or they go somewhere else because they simply cannot sustain that pace and without seeing the financial reward for it. And I would really like to see more people have the idea that if you want to be generous, build sustainability into that, make sure you get paid so you can continue doing the thing, so you can continue making the world a better place. And I I think it's really sad to see people burn out. I think it's sad to see that they get forced away from their passion. Yeah, so I'd like to see more people build products. I'd like to see more people build sustainability into the thing that they're making, especially in the open source world.
And so I feel really proud of us at GeoCut moving into this product. The first thing we've done is not expand the team, but is increase salaries and make sure it is actually competing with other IT companies. So having really good working conditions, I think. And only after that, slowly start to increase the team in size. And yeah, I feel good about that. I've always wanted to have a company where people basically have long-term contracts, full-time contracts, or whatever they prefer. I mean, sometimes it's 32 hours, 4 days a week, sometimes 3 days a week. But at least have that security that they'll be employed in the long run. And for me, that's definitely what I want to guarantee my staff. Make sure there's job security and that there's a sustainable income in the company so we can have this growth. And it also makes for us to have core developers that are not there for 1, 2, 3 years, that are there for, I have people that have been with me for 15 years. And I think definitely one of the reasons is that we've always been really good for our people in the team, and listening and seeing them burn out on consulting and making sure we change to something that is actually allowing them to do what they like to do, and that is develop a good product and develop a new feature instead of focusing on bug fixes.
Where would you like to be in 5 years' time?
We want to at least quadruple or quintuple, what do you say? Have 4 or 5 times the size we are now, both in revenue and team size, and make sure that we have a larger group of developers, but also a larger group of people that are making sure there's good documentation, there's training, Actually, the funny thing is that consulting is starting to increase a bit again. We now get some of our larger customers that are really focused on investing in new functionality. So the maintenance is kind of taken care of, but then bringing it forward. So there's a bit more of consulting coming with more subscribers to the project. So yeah, we want to definitely increase in size and make sure those projects are, the best you can find. And I think GeoServer and GeoNetwork in that sense have a long history, but also have a very long future still to come.
But what do you need to do to get to that size? What do you need to do to get like 5 times more customers? Who do you need to hire?
A salesperson. We've not done sales in any significant way so far. It's always been mouth to mouth. And I think the technology that is there to be used, we can deploy it very quickly for new customers, so we can actually scale very quickly and increase the number of customers we service. So outreach, making sure people actually know about us is a big thing. And that's not in my character, so I definitely need someone else to do that. Yeah.
Would any of this be a realistic dream if you were consulting?
Yes, there's companies that have grown much larger than we did in the last years by doing consulting. So yeah, you could. Is it my cup of tea? No, it's not. Because I really like to keep prices low for customers, to keep the technology accessible, so to be cost effective. I hate seeing governments spend tons of money on projects that contribute little to the community. So I much rather have many subscribers to the technology that pay a low fee or a relatively low fee and serve many instead of, taking so much money from single customers in consulting.
Having many customers, you're kind of spreading the risk too, aren't you? A little bit? Like, do you think of it like that instead of having 2 or 3 big ones?
Yeah, it definitely spreads the risk. So I'm really lucky that I've never seen that decrease in customers. So, but yeah, it definitely would be a risk. And it definitely is much less of a risk with the model we have now. Yeah. So it provides a lot of stability. To me, it provides opportunities to invest in staff that I would otherwise not hire. And that actually helps to make a better product. Yeah.
This is probably a really good place to sort of round off the conversation. And I want to say thanks. I don't think stories like yours get talked about enough. I think, especially here at FOSS4G, right? We're here to talk about software. We're here to talk about features, and it's exciting. But again, getting back to that idea of like, what is generous here? Is it doing a lot of hard work, or is it building sustainability into the tools that we use, that we want to see grow, that we want to distribute? So I appreciate you like sharing your story with us. I hope it inspires somebody out there or a lot of people out there to think about how, maybe not necessarily a product, but think about how they can build more stability into whatever it is that they're doing and have that feedback into better products. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for consistently being a sponsor of these events. I see you geocade all over the place and appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Daniel. It was a pleasure to be here.